I find it strange that atheists speak about human rights as if they have something worthwhile to say and as if they actually believe in those rights. The best you can get from naturalism is that morality is an illusion created by our genes to help us survive. Morality doesn't actually exist in the external world.
Well, perhaps you'd be less confused if you actually bother to research what atheism, naturalism and morality are. I'm an atheist. I do not turn to naturalism for my morality because the existence of the supernatural has no relevance to the existence of morality as a human-developed system of ethics. Because that is what morality is. It's a system we as a species have developed over time. It's not etched into our genetics as Subboor asserts, nor is it an intrinsic belief of naturalism. That is, in short, his fabrication. Yes, we have evolved traits that allow for us to develop systems, but the system itself was not evolved and is subject to scrutiny. I value human well-being, that guides my morality. And Subboor is in the exact same boat, only he values the dictatings of an as of yet unproven entity. His only connection with that unproven entity being a book written by human beings, a book which contains a vast wealth of factual errors that rule it out as the work of a competent entity, let alone an all-knowing one.
Say there is a child that is being given some bread, and it's a poor starving child that someone is helping, and there is another case in which another child is being kicked to death. From an atheistic point of view, this is merely two arrangements of matter. The only difference between them is that one arrangement of matter is different to another.
No. One is a starving child receiving some bread, whilst the other is a child being abused. You introduced that difference at the very start of your hypothetical, only to claim that there is no difference, which just isn't true, even by your own words. Thanks to my evolved consciousness, I have a sense of self, this abstract notion of me as a whole, not just a collection of atoms. That abstract notion is then applied to everything and everyone else. I see a chair or a table. I see other people. And because I have consciousness, I can understand that so do other people. And whilst there are variations in the human experience, there are some general things we share in common. For example, food is necessary for survival, whilst abuse is harmful. And wouldn't you know it, from a purely naturalistic perspective, we've reached the point where we can identify the difference between a child being given bread and a child being abused. If you disagree, show me where, at which exact point, did magic enter the equation. Now all that's left is for me to consider my ethical framework as a secular humanist and yours as a Muslim to see how we respond to these occurrences. Say the child was a 9-year-old girl being raped by a 51-year-old man. As a humanist, I would not only condemn that, but would do everything in my power to rid the world of such atrocity. You meanwhile will be stuck looking for a poorly written book and its various supplements in the form of hadiths, in which if you took the founder of your religion to be the pinnacle of human righteousness, you'd reach a very different conclusion to mine, and I would condemn you for that.
Morality is subjective. It is a fad. We could have evolved to have 6 fingers rather than 5. We could have evolved to see murdering children as something good. So morality is purely arbitrary from their point of view. The evolution of morality, their explanation in terms of natural selection, doesn't actually explain the ontological existence of morality. It merely explains away morality.
Well, of course morality is subjective. It is a human-developed system dependent on individual and shared values. Adding God to the equation merely increases the number of people taking part in ethical discourse by 1. It doesn't nullify all other positions on the matter. I do not agree with the morality laid down in the Qur'an. I do not believe I have the right to own slaves. I do not believe the legal status of women is worth half of that of a man. I do not believe we should murder everyone until all religion is for Allah. That's a fact that remains true whether you can prove your God to exist or whether, like right now, you are unable to do so. Adding God to the equation does not fix the problem you have invented. All it does is show us that you cannot make this argument without special pleading on behalf of your God. Now you may say that God's morality is special and objective on account of him being God. Okay, how? That's an assertion. What makes his morality different to that of any human dictator that asserts their morality to be an absolute morality? Being the creator of the universe wouldn't help in this situation either. It would be like a child abuser saying that what they did is okay since they are the parent and they brought that child into existence. Now you fall the subjective nature of subjective morality as being its weakness. I do not share that view. If history has shown us anything, it is that much of what we once considered moral was vile by today's standards. Standards I much prefer, yet there's still much to fix. And the way we got to where we are today, where women can vote, gays can't be tortured, and atheists won't be executed, was not through any heavenly mandate, but by people expanding their knowledge and understanding of humanity and growing as individuals. I don't see being able to scrutinize a person's morality as a weakness. I see it as a strength. When I ask a person why they view something as wrong, they can't merely fall back on a dictator, some authority. They have to explain using their values and reasoning to explain their position. That to me is valuable since it allows for ethical discourse and changes in how either or even both of us see the world through a moral lens. I do not want to live in a world of unquestionable morality since that is a world ripe for abuse. The world doesn't have a shortage of authoritative thinking. It has an abundance of it, and that's the problem. It's very easy to do something if you just keep telling yourself, I'm just following orders. It's much more difficult when you realize that you have the ability to challenge those orders. Now, given the shared ability to empathize with others and consider ourselves in their boots, it's possible through this sort of scrutiny to arrive at a social contract. That contract is morality. No magic needed.
So, people like Richard Dawkins, when they speak about religion is bad, this is good, we must fight for justice. At the same time, he writes that there is in the universe no good, no bad, no design. It is pitiless indifference. How can he hold these two views which clearly contradict each other? This is intellectual hypocrisy. The beliefs that you hold deep down inside about morality is different to the intellectual arguments you're giving against morality, and this has been extrapolated to the entire atheist movement, who don't realize that they have no right to speak about rights when they don't believe they exist. So why is their movement predicated on this is right, this is wrong, we are fighting for justice, we're fighting for human freedom, for human rights, and so on and so forth?
Well, first of all, Richard Dawkins is just an atheist. He's not the prophet or pope of atheism. What he says has no relevance at all to what any other atheist thinks, unless they tell you so. Now, I don't know what you're referring to exactly, since I've never read any of the books by Dawkins, Harris or Dennett, having only read Hitchens' expose of Mother Teresa. But it's feasible that Dawkins could have been stating that there's no morality inherent to the universe, which, if he was, is something I would agree with. Rocks are not concerned with the principles of right or wrong. For that we require at least one, arguably two, conscious entities. It's not contradictory to say that morality doesn't exist on some universal level, yet we as human beings have developed it as a system, any more than it's contradictory to state that tools are not an inherent part of the universe, but we also make them. Tools only exist because we as a species have created them, both materially and as an abstract. To quote late comedy writer and philosopher Sir Terry Pratchett, take the universe
and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet, you try to act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged.
Now you may refer to this abstract, this social contract, as an illusion or a lie. Pratchett did in The Hogfather, but I'd argue that only fits if you as a person take morality to be something that it isn't. If you take it to be objective when it's not. Otherwise it's just another system like all the others we have developed.
In fact, their behavior only goes to show the Islamic conception of Fitrah makes perfect sense. The Fitrah says there is a creator, and the Fitrah teaches us, it is a drive inside us to recognize that there is right and wrong. But from an atheistic point of view, there is no right and wrong. So why is it these atheists speak about right and wrong as if it actually exists, as if right and wrong objectively is out there, which is what we as Muslims believe? It's simply because even though they're trying to disbelieve in God, the fitrah is still inside them. They still recognize right and wrong still exists. But if they want to be intellectually sound, if they want to be intellectually complete, what they need to do is that they need to bring their intellectual beliefs in line with their actual deep down beliefs about morality. And to do that, they simply need to accept the existence of God, because the existence of God makes perfect sense with objective morality. Atheism doesn't.
Of course, it all comes back to the mystical Fitrah. By intellectually sound, what Subboor Ahmad is referring to is the Fool's Crusade he, Hamza Tzortzis and Imran Hussein set upon back at the end of 2013. During which the list of people actively set about lying about the science on multiple occasions to try and demonstrate that the Fitrah, this innate belief in God and subsequently various other traits extending from that, existed. The highlight of which involved them listing the entire publishing list of a psychology professor, claiming said sources to demonstrate the Fitrah. They seemed to believe the number of writings would be daunting to any critics. I could only imagine their surprise as I read through every single one and showed not only how it didn't prove the Fitrah existed, but how all but one didn't even touch on the subject. And the one that did was a single paragraph describing said psychologist's as of yet unverified hypothesis at a future psychology conference so that attendees could decide whether or not to attend said lecture. That's what Subboor's notions of intellectually sound look like. As for everything else, it's all just assertion. Rather than taking a step back and trying to learn what I or anyone else actually thinks is an atheist, Subboor has to create this straw man which you can knock over time and time again. Because, make no mistake, this is the same straw man I've always been dealing with. Last time it was the difference between a child and a book. This time it's the difference between a child being fed versus a child being abused. They're just both rearrangements of matter. Even though you note a difference as you tell the story, that difference matters to me as a naturalistic atheist, so it's kind of self-defeating. I duck in every now and then to see if his position has matured in any way, yet, as this video has shown me, not at all. He's still so wrapped up in trying to defend his religion from all scrutiny that he refuses to honestly engage with his opposition, which is just kind of sad. As always, please check out our other videos. You can support Essence of Thought via Patreon, and in doing so help us become ad-free. We'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone also given to the channel, giving a special thanks to the following people: Hannah Banghart, Matthew Kovac, Mut Gay, Ahmad Devojny, Erica Ann James, Steve Corbin, Caitlin Smart, Wellington Marcus, Atlas5, and Sash Daniels. And from myself and Adita, take care now.